In the last video, I sit down with my friend Gottfreid to talk about his remarkable story about getting into McKinsey, especially getting in with 0 years of traditional work experience and from a non-target MBA program to then get into McKinsey's MBA position, the associate position. So if you haven't checked out that video yet, I highly recommend it. And in it, he left us a challenge, which was if you all were able to get 150 likes on the video, then him and I would sit back down together and film a video where he explains to you all his secrets and his understanding of McKinsey's behavioral interview, commonly known as the personal experience interview, which was even the reason I wasn't able to move forward in my process with McKinsey. And so that's this video today. But before jumping into the main PEI portion of this video, we wanted to leave y'all with a last challenge, which is 250 likes. And if we're able to hit that mark, then Gottfreid will come back and run me through a McKinsey style case, where I will be the person doing the case, and then he'll give me feedback as if he was my interviewer. So this would be a fantastic way for you all to see what it looks like for an incoming McKinsey person to be giving a case, and then for another management consultant from Bain, so myself, taking the case. I think it'll be an incredible opportunity for those of y'all looking to increase your casing skills, especially if you're applying to the big three. So on that note, if you'd like to see Gottfreid come back to give me a case, give this video a like right now, and you might as well subscribe while you're here too, if you appreciate the free efforts that me, Gottfreid, and then also my friend Rohit are putting into this channel. But otherwise, hope y'all enjoy the video, and we'll see y'all next time. In today's video, we're going to talk about McKinsey's personal experience interview, commonly known as the PEI, and my friend Gottfreid here, who just got accepted into McKinsey and will be an incoming associate next fall, is going to tell us about his tips and his advice to y'all. If you don't know who Gottfreid is, check out the last video where we talk about his story, especially as he goes from a non-target MBA program with 0 years of traditional work experience all the way to getting accepted to McKinsey's post-MBA consultant program. But for now, we'll focus our efforts on the PEI. In this video, we're going to break it down into 3 sections. In the first one, we'll give a quick overview about the PEI and the things that you need to understand about it. Then I'll turn it over to Gottfreid in the second section so that he can talk about the high-level understanding of what you need to know for the PEI and how you need to think about it, so that we can talk about the third section, which is how he went about preparing and what that means for you as you look to do the same if you're able to get a McKinsey interview. So diving into the first portion, the McKinsey PEI is essentially their version of the behavioral interview. Unlike normal behavioral interviews, they really try to focus in on stories, specifically stories where you're either in a leadership position, where you're working with teammates, solving a problem, overcoming an obstacle, any of those kind of common behavioral stories. And what they're looking for is really detailed understandings of what you did and why you did it. And they'll focus on specific stories for, 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah. Is that right? Is there anything you'd want to add to that from your experience?
Yeah, I think just the other things, your story needs to be broad enough because they're going to be asking you a lot of different behaviorals within that one story. So you have to make sure that you're not going to have to jump to a different story mid-interview.
Definitely. And we can dig into, how you were able to solve that problem later on in this video. Cool. So then now let's turn it over to the second section where Gottfreid, can you tell us a little bit about what exactly is McKinsey looking for in their PEI from your perspective?
Yeah.
And then how were you able to understand that as you were going through your prep process?
Yeah, so from my understanding, the things they're really looking for, first, your decision-making process. How exactly do you make decisions? Your reasoning and your process, the process behind it. Secondly, they're trying to understand why. Just why you do everything you do. Third, they want to understand, does this person have initiative? Will you go out there and do things without being told to do? And fourth, empathy. Can you work with different people? Can you lead people? Can you get people to do things you need them to do without having some sort of power over them?
Yeah.
So those are the main things. So let's actually start from the empathy part. Going a little bit deeper, just want to have stories in which, they want to know they have had experience working with people from different backgrounds in specific. Because in McKinsey, you're always going to be your teammates are going to be from all over the place. There's a guy in my office that used to be in the NFL.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was a football player and now he's a consultant. So you're going to be working with people from very different backgrounds, and they want to make sure that you're going to be able to work with them, and when you get promoted, that you're going to be able to lead them. The other one's really about initiative. Are you the kind of person that just does stuff because they need to get done without anyone telling you what to do? That's the other thing they're looking for, not just the initiative part of it, but to some degree in initiative, there's some dealing with ambiguity, and they want to ensure that you're able to deal with ambiguity. Again, Neel has already been working for a consultant for a while, you probably understand that a lot of the tasks they give you, they're not going to give you too many instructions. They're just going to tell you, go and get it done.
Totally.
The other thing, it's why. Every single thing you say, they're going to be asking you why. And it gets very, very granular. You're going to be like, okay, you're going to give an example. You're resolving a conflict. You're like, yeah, we're sitting in that meeting and I decided I wanted to bring in a third perspective. And they'll ask you why. You explain why. They'll ask you, why did you do it in that meeting and not wait till the next day? Why didn't you send an email instead of saying it in person? They're really trying to understand the reasoning behind every single thing you do. And even on a higher level perspective, you say, I did this internship at Microsoft. Why did you do an internship at Microsoft? Was there any purpose to it? Or were you just because it was what you just did it because it was what you had? They really want to understand that, and the reason why is because it goes into your decision-making process. They want to understand how you make decisions. Are you making logical decisions, or are you just going with the flow? Are you just going with the flow? A lot of people just go with the flow. They want to know that you understand the decisions that you're making, the impact they have, and your decisions are based on some sort of data, some sort of logic. They want to make sure you're making logical decisions, and that's what the PEI comes to. So first, they want to understand your decision-making process, how you make decisions. From that, they want to understand why you made those decisions, why and how, but the why is the most important thing. Why do you do what you do? They want to know that you're able to take initiative when it comes down to it, that you can deal with ambiguity. And they want to know that you have empathy, that you can work with different people from very different backgrounds. And those are the main four things, at least in my perspective, I believe that it's what they're looking for in the PEIs.
That makes a lot of sense. And even from my experience, I think that really resonates, even having worked at Bain. Really good consultants, and I think it's just people who are really good in a lot of facets, not even just consulting, have a lot of those qualities. So I think it makes perfect sense that in the PEI, they're looking for that. So now for the third part of the video, where we'll hear from Gottfreid about how exactly he went about preparing for the PEI interview with McKinsey, and then how it ended up going for him.
So yeah, preparing, same thing. If you watch the other video that Neel just released about my story, it's really just about putting in the work. So for the PEI, you have to think that don't just trust the experience you have with behavioral. First, try to understand exactly what the PEI is, what they're looking for in the PEI, which you can get from this video, of course.
Yeah, so you guys are already good, so congrats.
And then really just practicing. First, practice it with someone else, and most importantly, practice it with yourself. You understand your story better than anyone else. You know exactly what you did, you know the value you drove, so practice it with yourself. You can say it out loud, you can write it down, but after you do that, just look at it, critique yourself. Be like, I don't like this. I wouldn't hire myself if I said this. And just perfect the story that way. The other very important thing is being very careful with your words. Of course, the narrative is going to drive value, but I think what really drives the value home is the words you use. Just for an example, I participated in this global hackathon during my internship at Microsoft. My team won, so we had the opportunity to pitch our project to a LinkedIn executive, and it was about this version of LinkedIn for students. We had prepared everything looked right, but when we're preparing for the actual presentation, I thought about it and was like, well, they probably have tried this before. Clearly didn't work because it's not out there.
Yeah.
So why perhaps it didn't work? Well, I imagine that the people that were running it probably had some 10 years of work experience. They had been out of school for a while. They were not students. They didn't understand the pain students were going for. Of course, it wasn't gonna work. So the phrase I decided to use there was like, for students, designed by students. And we had that phrase literally, I think, one single slide. We said that maybe twice during the presentation. And that's the one phrase he took home. When we were discussing after the presentation, I think he said, for students, by students, at least 10 times. He kept saying it over and over again. For students, by students. And that's the message he took home. So it's really thinking, what do you want to drive home? Not just a memorable thing, but also something that translates the value you're bringing in. As I said on the other video, understanding what you're good at. If you understand what you're good at and you wrap it up cute and nice
bow tie and everything.
Bow tie, everything.
Package it well.
You throw it in there during the interview. The interviewer is gonna take that home. So I'm like, oh, okay, this person's really good at building relationships, and that's ultimately what you want to do.
Well said, Gottfreid. I like that you tied in themes that we talked about in the other video, where you talked about your case prep process to how you prepared for the PEI, which is just to be successful in this. It sounds like you really have to understand yourself, as well as understand the process you're going through to see where kind of the congruencies overlap the most.
Yeah.
And I guess one thing I'd want to add to just a very tactical thing to what Gottfreid said, which is when you're preparing for these kinds of behavioral interviews, having friends interview you is of course awesome because you can get their feedback and they know you better than the interviewer will. So they might be able to remember things that you might have forgotten in your story or help you frame things. But I think another way of preparing for the interview, if you're preparing by yourself, is by just recording yourself and then seeing how you look in the recording. I think it'll be pretty awkward, similar to if you're telling yourself in the mirror, but it's one thing that you'll be able to quickly overcome and something that every time when I make a video I have to overcome being filmed, but if I can do it, you can totally do it as well.
Yeah, and in regards to like tactical things, just wanted to add a few more.
Oh yeah, let's hear it, man. Yeah, please.
In the McKinsey process, when you're doing the interviews, they'll tell you exactly the name of your interviewer and their position. So it's really simple. Look them up on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Find who they are, look at their previous experiences. And why would you do that? Well, the reason is very simple. At the end of the day, your interviewer is a human being. They have biases. They like to hear fun stories. Everyone likes to hear fun stories, and they like to hear things that they will relate to or things that interest them. So you want to understand who your interviewer is so that you can think of the best stories to tell them. Of course, you have to remember that your stories have to be large enough or encompassing enough that whichever question they ask within that role of the story you're saying or the experience you're telling, they're gonna be to answer it without having to jump to a different question. For example, one of the guys that interviewed me was a specialist in retail. So through my pro bono platform, again, go watch the previous video so you know what I'm talking about. We work with this local retailer, so I had the perfect retail example to talk about. And being very tactful during the interview, when he asked me to tell the story, I literally said, I have a few stories to say, but I have this one about a retail client we work with. I know you're a retail guy. I know you're really gonna like this. And he automatically was like, oh, okay, let me listen in.
Yeah.
And then of course,
awesome.
Figuring out like relatable things that were part of the story. So I knew this guy was a partner, of course. I've seen some of the consulting memes. I know some consulting friends. So I told him, hey, working with this client, we asked for data and they sent us all the data in this PDF. And I'm like, what am I gonna do with this PDF? Automatically hit home. Because why? That's something that happens to consultants all the time. He could like automatically relate to my experience. He knew what I was talking about. And then of course, just the rest of the story was just a fun experience. It was a fun story to tell. Of course, the impact needs to be there. The impact was there, but you have to remember that the impact's not necessarily replicable. Just because you increase revenue by 10%, it doesn't mean you're gonna be able to do it again under every circumstance. So the impact is secondary to what they're looking for. They're really trying to understand what you did and how you did it. And if at the end of the day there was an awesome impact, better. But remember that impact secondary. Think about fun stories you can tell, fun experiences that you did awesome things and that had pretty cool impacts.
Yeah, I think that's all fantastic advice. This is advice I wish I had when I was doing my McKinsey interview, but I'm happy at Bain, so it's all right. I'm happy to just provide it for y'all so y'all can find success where I didn't. But anyway, that's the end of this video talking about McKinsey's PEI. We'd love to hear how these pieces of advice impact you as you go through either the McKinsey interview or other consulting or non-consulting interviews. And as always, if you like the video and appreciate the free effort that both myself and Rohit and then also Gottfreid here in these couple videos have been putting in, please give us a like, subscribe, and let us know what you liked and would like to see in future videos down below in the comment section. But until then, see you on the next video.
Thank you.